Hi, it's Erin from The Witch of Saturn, here today to participate in the hashtag Thoughtful Tarot by Mermaid's Dream Tarot. Mermaid's Dream Tarot gave a list of 11 prompts to inspire some more thoughtful discussion around tarot and our practice. And I pulled some decks to go through as I talk through my answers. So why do I use tarot and oracle? So many reasons. The first and foremost reason is divination. I love using tarot in a divinatory way to commune and communicate with spirit, my guides, something greater than myself, some kind of universal guidance that comes from outside of myself, as well as connect to my own inner knowing and landscape of my intuition. I also use tarot for predictive purposes. My background with tarot is that I think, like many of us, I played around with tarot for a really long time before I committed to learning all of the meanings of the 78 cards. And part of why I'm starting flipping through this deck, which is the RWS Redux by Jamie Sawyer. This is an indie deck that is available now for pre-order, is that after playing around with tarot for a while, when I got really serious about learning the meanings, I felt as though I had to commit to working with the RWS. I really wanted to know these images inside and out, and I wanted to get very good at being a professional tarot reader, working with questions that are very future oriented. What will happen with this love? What should I do with my finances? What's the best career path for me? I wanted to be able to answer those questions with tarot for myself and for other people. Now I have expanded outside of the RWS and have more recently, I would say in the last year or so, gotten into deck collecting and using a lot of different tarot decks. This is also a time when my practice has gone back to its roots of more self-exploration and, for lack of a better word, it's just straight up therapy. Like now my tarot practice is very much centered around self-care, as well as divination and prediction work. I am really enjoying at this point in my life being able to sit down and do a reading and take time for myself and connect to my intuition and to spirit. I've always been someone who needs any type of practice that I commit to, like yoga, for example, to be something that's deeper than just, I don't know, a surface level. Like I can't just go, I'm not someone who's just gonna go to the gym and work out. Like I need there to be a deeper connection while I move my body for me to stay engaged with it and feel fulfilled on a soul level. And that's something that tarot does for me. The other thing that I use tarot for that I think is so important is play. I watch my children play and delve into this imaginatory world that is so rich for us in childhood. And as we age, it's something that we don't connect with as much and isn't so super valued in our culture. And I just think that there's a little bit of imaginative disassociation that happens in play that's really necessary for being a human being, an emotional and spiritual being in this physical body. Like life is intense and I want to escape it sometimes, and I used to do that in more unhealthy ways, and I found now that tarot is a really healthy way for me to go into my imagination and intuition and connect to this more creative, free-flowing, artistic realm. And so I think that this is just a fantastic tool. Also, being a double Capricorn and a Capricorn moon as part of that placement, I really like to use physical tools to connect to my intuition. That's really helpful for me, and tarot really gives me that. The next prompt is, what has changed in your deck taste? A lot. So I chose to go through the Wayhome Tarot for this one. This is by Bakara, Wintner, and Autumn Whitehurst. And I bought this deck because I got it for so cheap. I bought this deck, I think it was $10, and I was just really excited to have found something on Facebook Marketplace that was like an indie deck at a steal. And I do really enjoy the artwork on this deck, but I didn't do a lot of research into it before I purchased it. I used to buy decks really based on, even if there were just a couple of cards that I really liked the artwork of, I would be like, yeah, I want to get that, especially if it was at a good price. So two things have kind of changed for me in that regard. One is that I realized that I can't buy every single deck just because I like the artwork. There are a lot of decks that I do have that are in that category. Like, well, I like the art. I think that that's a perfectly fine reason to buy a deck. It's just not sustainable for me because there's so many out there that are really, you know, pretty decks that I would love to just be able to get every deck I thought was pretty. But I'm not in that situation, and I don't think that it even fits into the way I like to work with decks, because I want to be using the decks that I have, and I am much more discerning now in terms of what I'm going to bring in, why I'm bringing it in. I consider not just the card itself, but the deck as a whole and how it's going to read. I'm also, you know, I have kind of moved away from that, like, well, this is a really great price, so let me grab it up while I can. And now I think more about, it's kind of been an evolution from a good buy to a good investment. Like, I will now pay more for a deck that I think is really going to be useful in my collection and that I'm going to read with on a regular basis, rather than a deck that is going to be something that sits on my shelf because I don't connect with it that much, but I like the imagery in the cards, if that makes sense. This is the Void Tarot by Sarai Nissan, and the next question is, what has changed in your practice? So my practice used to be very much card of the day, where I would pick either one card, or then it evolved to 2 cards, to 3 cards, to just do a basic predictive reading of how my day was going to go. And I did this up in my bedroom closet mostly, where I would be getting ready for the day and I would pull some cards, and then I would go about my day and kind of see how they showed up. I've also always done like a year ahead spread where I'm working with one card's energy for the entire month, and I still do that, but my practice has evolved to, I mean, I do sometimes 2 or 3 readings a day, and it is something where I'm not just pulling cards in the morning and going about my day. I'm sitting down and doing a more in-depth reading. I'm combining decks. I'm bringing in oracles. I would just say that the ritual of tarot, which is something that's very important to me in my life to have ritual, has evolved from something where the cards were just, so I guess you could say that the percentage of my time, commitment, and energy spent on and with tarot has increased, and it has become something that is more elaborate and deeper, more deeply connected. And the reason that I chose this deck to show while talking about this is that this is my daily reader now. I've brought this deck in and read with it almost every single day since, and just feel a very deep connection to it. And so it's something that, I really cherish, that more rich experience of tarot and reading with it. This is the Starbrights Tarot by Mariana Andrade. This next prompt is, what has not worked for you? I already talked about this a little bit with buying decks for a card of the day versus a deck that is just a really good reader in general. And I also think that kind of buying decks that just suit a niche interest of mine doesn't necessarily work. Like, for instance, I'm a professional astrologer, and so I'm very drawn to astrology decks, but I don't have a huge use for them in my tarot practice. Like, I do think that it makes sense for me to have this deck where we see the constellation of Scorpio, and this is the death card, which is a Scorpio card, and here's Scorpius, the constellation, and the keyword transition. But I'm not really reading with this deck. It's more like, oh, I'm interested in astrology and constellations, and ooh, there's a tarot deck about that, so let me bring that in. I have this too with a lot of herbal decks, or there are just things that I see. I have one that's a Tree of Life deck that I'm like, oh, I want to learn that, and here's a deck about it, let me buy that. And I do think that maybe that's not the best way for me to A, work with a deck, or B, even really learn about the topic. It sounds good in theory, and I think that it could work for a lot of people, but for me, it just kind of doesn't, and the deck will just sit by the wayside until, I don't know, I'm ready to work with it, or unless I have a very specific use for it. Like, I do use astrology decks and moon phase decks in a very specific way on one of my altar spaces, and that really works for me. But unless it's doing that one job, having a deck on a very small topic of interest of mine is not necessarily something that I think is that I will continue to do. The next question is, what is working for you right now? And for this, I'm going to give the same answer as my friend Jay from Iridescent Tarot when she responded to this tag, which is Deck Connectors Club. And so for this, I chose the Yellow House Tarot by Heidi Nickerson, which was the first deck that we used for Deck Connectors Club. And it is a podcast style YouTube series that Jay and I do, where we came up with a 5-day structure for working with your decks with the intention of connecting to them, which is something that I was struggling with. I would kind of have my one go-to deck that I read with, and then the other decks that I had were simply like, oh, I like to flip through them and look at the artwork, but I wasn't really forming a deep connection to that particular deck or how it fit into my collection or how I read with it. And so that process of connecting to my decks and the experience of doing this in community, where not only do I love just talking to Jay about tarot, which I could do and do all day, every day, but also through having other YouTubers and deck creators on with us. And this process of kind of community has been really fantastic. I've been involved in other communities before, between being in the yoga world for 20 years and being in the astrology world for so many years. And I've never felt something like I do with the tarot community, where everyone feels so welcoming and supportive and just really friendly, and it just feels like where I'm supposed to be. So that's really working at this point in my life. The next prompt is, what practice are you excited to delve into? And this is another repeat answer with Jay, because we are doing a Marseille study in the beginning of the new year. Shanna D is going to join us for that, which is super exciting. And so I chose the Marseille at Night deck by Printagrams. I'm excited to learn a different style of tarot other than, I'm going to keep these in order, other than RWS or the Thoth associations that I've studied, kind of like not by just studying the Thoth tarot, but I've done a lot of study of the Decans and the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. But I don't really know anything about Marseille, and I'm excited to learn that and to do it in this kind of study group community way. I've always been somebody who's, I'm a perpetual student. I'm always taking some course or learning something. And actually, more recently, I would say that I've kind of taken a break from that. I was oversaturated after taking so many astrology courses that I've just been kind of delving more into the practice of tarot and astrology. And so I'm ready to jump back into study mode and to see what comes up in that work. The next prompt is, what practice has grown old for you? And that is bringing in decks faster than I can use them. I think that I hope that, I don't know, is this relatable? I think that maybe this is relatable, that when you first get into deck collecting, that there is this obsession, excitement that comes with it, where you just want all of the decks, and there's so many out there that are like just incredible. And so I have been, the past few months, have been bringing in decks at a faster pace than I can really get to work with them. And so I've slowed my roll with that. I feel like my collection is at the point right now where I'm pretty good. Not that I'm not bringing in anything new, because I am, but I'm doing it in a more conscious way. And there are a lot of decks that I have that I want to spend more time with, work with in a deeper way. There are a lot of guidebooks that I have that I'd really like to legit read cover to cover, or at least really get into a little bit more. So it's slowing down. The dopamine hit from the mailbox is not a daily occurrence anymore. It's I'm bringing in a couple a month. The next prompt is, what are your plans for your deck collection? Which is, nice segue right into this. My plans are to really organize and assess what I've got, because I am someone who, I really need a system of organization in all areas of my life in order to feel good about it. It's not just with tarot, it's kind of like in general. Like, my brain is so much happier when my mental health is directly connected to the state of my environment, whether things are organized and aesthetically pleasing and functional. So for instance, like right now, I have shelves above my desk where my decks live. And it has gotten to the point where what was a single row on the shelf is now a double row of decks, and I can't have it, because I can't see what's back there. I don't know, I'm like, where's that deck? Is it behind this row of decks? Let me pull this one out to find it. Like, I can't get down with that. It just makes me nuts. I think that it is a combination of my Saturnian nature, where it's like a waste of time for me to spend looking for something. I need everything to have a place and be in its place, so that I'm not wasting time trying to find it. That also comes from like my mom is someone who moves things all the time. So growing up in a house where if you left something here and turned around and then it was gone is like maddening. So I like that when things have a place and I know where they are and I can easily get to it. Also, this came up with in like our last couple of deck connectors episodes, where if it's not aesthetically pleasing to me and pretty, it does give me like a little brain schism. Like, for example, pairing Oracle with Tarot, if they don't look good together, even if they work really good together, my brain is like, but this would be so much better if they also looked good. There is something about aesthetics that are very important to me. So I am excited I got a new bookshelf for my decks that will be put together this week, and I'm excited to organize them, have them all out in a way that I can easily see them and access them, and then assess what I've got, where the holes are, right? What I still need, what would make sense to bring in, and also see what can go. This is the Star Seeker Oracle by Nicky Ferrada. This next prompt is, what is one challenge you would like to give yourself? One challenge that I would like to give myself is, it's not one challenge, it's like, okay, it's a whole theme, which is one, to really go through my collection, like I was saying, organize, assess, and work with some of the decks that have just been kind of like sitting. Like this deck has been kind of in a purgatory where I haven't really used it. When I have, I'm not quite sure about it. I need to spend some more time with this, dig in with it, and then also challenge myself to get more comfortable with purging decks, with letting them go. Jay's really good at that. I am not so good at that just in general in life. It's been just a theme that I'm kind of working on, breaking the generational curse or generational pattern around holding on to things, right? Hoarding versus purging and letting go. So that's something that I'm definitely working on. And also this idea of conscious curation, where I am really considering a deck's role and kind of figuring out what's important to me in my collection and what I'm looking for from different decks, which jobs they do, and then consciously making choices about which decks to bring in from that place. This is the Tarot of Colors. This is a more recent Kickstarter that I backed. I backed it for a couple of reasons, one of which being this incredible gilding on the deck. My daughter's favorite color is rainbow, so I had to get this deck. And this next prompt is, what is a deck trend you cannot get behind? And I'm showing this deck because there's been a lot of discussion around it as to whether or not AI was used, which the creator says was not the case. The premise of this deck was that her daughter participated in it and did the watercolor background paintings, and then she did the digital artwork on top of it. For many of the cards, her daughter didn't do all of the backgrounds, but that's, what she has said about this deck. But there's still some skepticism about, if AI was used, if it wasn't. And here's the thing, is that I personally don't want AI in my decks. I want to have decks that are created through human art. And I know that was Jay's answer, and also Mermaid's Dream Tarot said the same thing. But I'm going to add a caveat to that, because I'm not saying that I don't think that there should be AI in decks at all. I think that it's just personal choice as a creator and a tarot user as to whether or not you want to participate in that. And obviously AI is not going anywhere. But one thing I can't get behind is the use of AI without transparency. I want to know. I don't want this to be something that's hidden and lied about. I want to know, did you use AI? How much did you use it? How do you use it? And why did you use it? And then, you know, let me make my decision as to whether or not I want the deck from there, because, you know, some people create AI decks and they're beautiful, and some people love to use AI decks and don't have a problem with them. But I do think it's something that that everyone should be upfront about, and not something that, you know, is like this other thing now that we have to research. That's like, well, did they use AI? Are we sure? Do we believe that? Do we trust it? Like, come on, just let's all be upfront. This next deck is the Practical Magic Inner Witch Oracle by Grounded by the Moon. Something I'd like to see more of, which is the last prompt, is more witchy oracles. And tarot decks in general. I know that sounds crazy because there's like so many out there, but I have not found my perfect witchy deck either in tarot or in oracle. And I would like to, I don't know, find that, have that in my collection, in the world. So I just want more witchy decks. I can't get enough of them. I have 3 videos right now of my witchy deck collection between all of the decks that I have, and so I'm just all, you know, there's never enough. There's never going to be enough witchy decks. I want them all. Give me all the witchy decks. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please do all the things like subscribe, comment. I love reading the comments and engaging with the community in the comments section. I also would like to thank Mermaid's Dream Tarot for this thoughtful tarot tag, and to Jay for participating so that I even knew that the tag existed. I just think it's very fun to be able to talk about tarot with each other, and to see what everyone thinks about their own tarot practice. It's so inspiring and fun to be a part of. So thank you so much. Have a great day.